Hi folks, I'm sorry your Aberdeen preview pod is so late, getting posted so late, but it was Friday night, middle-aged man sitting all alone with his laptop. It got pretty disgusting. I've got to be honest with you, I was looking at Willie's. I was looking at Willie's on the internet. I was looking at Willie Collum's review of the VAR, the big VAR decisions over the last month in Scotland, and it was helping me complete my book. I've got a book that I'm doing as well. It's a cultural history of VAR in Scotland. The title is going to be "Why Has He Hurt Himself?" Why has he hurt himself? Subtitle: The man who punched himself in the face and raked studs down his own shin and almost got away with it if it wasn't for me. I can't stand the conspiracy stuff in Scotland, particularly when I start believing it as myself. But I don't even want to hear it for Rangers supporters. If something goes against us tomorrow night, it would be quite funny if everybody starts, why has he hurt himself? Why has he hurt himself? They're so biased towards Celtic, the VAR boys, that they can't even see a Celtic player being in the region of any Motherwell player getting hurt. That was funny. I didn't watch it all. I just went in to get myself wound up. The do thing you go through. I knew I had to do my preview pod, so I was only aware that it'd come on just at the point I was trying to do my preview pod. So I just quickly watched the Mikey Moore thing, Mikey Moore review. I bypassed a lot of Celtic stuff getting reviewed. I just went straight to the Motherwell one. I'd already seen a few things on social media, but I thought I better brush up on what's happening here. That was hilarious. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain just why is he hurt himself? Why is that Motherwell player just hit the deck? Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain just tiptoeing through the tulips, not anywhere near the guys. It's the fact that he slaps him in the face at the same time. I'm not getting into the conspiracy thing. I'm not into all that. I just thought it was quite funny. You might not think it was funny. The Mikey Moore one, I think we discussed it at the time. We discussed it in great detail. I was on Gersnet talking about it as well. The 2-each draw with Livingston. It's at 2-each. We're into 9 minutes of injury time. Mikey Moore's going through on goal. Gets completely wiped out. Nothing's given. It's just we wait for 3 or 4 minutes of that injury time, in which we had the momentum up until that point. I think after the VAR review, it pretty much killed us. We couldn't really get going again after that, and we get nothing out of that incident. And it should have been a red card. It should have been a red card, and I wasn't 100% sure it would have been a red card for the denial of a goal scoring opportunity, or is it an obvious goal scoring opportunity? I've forgot the acronyms already, and it's only a month since I watched the last one of these review programmes. But I thought if they're not going to give the red card for denying a clear goal scoring opportunity, then that's it. The protocols say that they can't, because it wasn't a penalty. I didn't think it was a penalty at the time. I thought it was just outside the box. That's been backed up, and you could see it the way it was reviewed on the review programme this evening. I'm talking to you on Friday evening, but everybody obviously is going to still be pretty upset at the fact we got nothing at all for that. But the protocols demand that you can't. That's it. If you don't get a red card, there's no reason to bring it back for a free kick either. Or there's no protocol in place that lets you bring it back for a free kick. I knew the continuation of the foul into the box. It didn't matter when the Livingston player's right leg comes sweeping through after his left leg had initially fouled Mikey Moore outside the box, because that only applies to jersey pulling or holding. So I was kind of all right with that one. So it was just confirmation that the referee had got it totally wrong on the park, and that VAR then fails to correct it into the red card afterwards. Look, for me, there's car crashes all the time. There's horrors go on in the roads of Britain. Nobody considers getting rid of cars. It's just we want to get rid of bad drivers. And I think that's the problem with VAR. We need better technology. We need more VAR, as far as I'm concerned. It needs to get more sweeping powers. It needs to be able to intervene in more occasions. That's a change of the protocols. But it's just badly operated just now. I think it needs as much of it as we can get automated as possible, but there's not enough money put into it, basically. The people that are in charge of it, the referees in charge of Scotland, we need them all, everybody, to be full-time. And we need more full-time and far better trained officials on the pitch, in the VAR room. To me, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm just thinking, as I said that, you do a daft analogy or a daft simile about it's like driving cars or daft metaphor, I know for a fact somebody's going to get in touch and go, "Aye, but this is like an articulated lorry coming down the road towards you. You're just standing in the middle and nobody's telling you to get off the middle of the road." I know there'll be something. There's people who absolutely despise VAR, but it's just a personal opinion. I think it's okay. We just, the people in charge, particularly in Scotland, we need to give them more backing. We need to make them full time. There's nothing to say a week to drink in a good result isn't precisely what this team needed to see us explode into our 8th last game of the season this Saturday evening against Aberdeen. I think the 6 3/4 days between the final whistle on that rather untidy, unconvincing win against St Mirren and Paisley last Sunday and the 5:45 PM kickoff against Aberdeen at Ibrox this Saturday night. That could very well be all that's required for the Danny Röhl plan, the best he's hoping to get out of this team, the point he's hoping to get us to arrive, to be made real, to be realised. We've had a few sideways results of late, and as the head coach was saying in Friday's pre-match presser, we've had a bad performance against St Mirren, but we got the result. But we put the two of them together. We get the good performances and the good results going together. Then, bang, we're going to explode onto the scene. And this is why he keeps hitting it with the 9 cup finals, 8 cup finals to go. This is the run-in. We've spent the whole season, we spent our whole life as Rangers supporters projecting towards the end of a season. What kind of situation are we going to be in? Can we even get back into the title race? Can we get back into the top half of the table was a concern at the beginning of October. Can we get ourselves into a title race? And there's been all various factors, some good for us, some bad for other clubs, but we're 3 points off the top of the table with 8 games to go. This is it. This is the run-in. And Danny Röhl, one thing about him, see, there's been lucky factors, extraneous factors. Celtic hiring Wilfred Nancy and having a bit of an implosion, a bit of a civil war. Hearts just not being used to being top of the league, to being used to challenging for the Scottish title. It's 66 years since they won it. Things like that have definitely helped, but Danny Röhl's timing always seems to have the sideways results. In terms of the league, anyway, he seems to have the sideways results in a way and at a time that can still be recoverable, and also the league challenge can be recoverable and also take something from them that makes it just, here we are again. It's 3 points off the top of the league. This is the way it happens. It wouldn't surprise me if this is us hitting the pace, getting a proper marriage of performance and results at just the right time. This is huge, but it's Rangers, isn't it always? So it's Aberdeen at Ibrox. And it's just, Aberdeen supporters, they want us to hate them as much as they hate us, and we can refuse to engage with that. We've got Celtic, if we want to do the hate thing, that's right on our doorstep. It's unavoidable. We can't really help ourselves with that one, just that Celtic can't help hating us. But the one thing it's the songs. Aberdeen, we're supposed to hate Aberdeen as far as Aberdeen supporters are concerned because they came along in the 80s under Sir Alec Ferguson and they blew away the power structure in Scotland. They were the new kids, they were the new firm, them and Dundee United, and that's absolutely fine. And I grew up, they traumatised me when I was growing up because I start remembering football when Rangers were just starting off on a run of 1 win at Pittodrie in 12 years, for example. Aberdeen would always come to Ibrox, give us a hard time. They could, my first Scottish Cup final, my first 2 Scottish Cup finals, we lost the 2 of them to Aberdeen, both after extra time in various kind of agonising styles. So they really did haunt me, Aberdeen, when I was a kid. And it took me a while to get over the fact that Aberdeen were no longer the force they once were. I remember they've only won the title 4 times in their history, Aberdeen. 1955, 1980, 1984, 1985. A lot of talk this season about, Hearts could finally go one better than they did in 85-86 season. They could finally win the league title if they don't mess it up on the last day like they did 40 years ago. But 41 years ago and 42 years ago, Aberdeen were winning the league when Hearts went down to the last day of the season and then lost at Dens Park to let Celtic nick the title from them in 86. Aberdeen were still the reigning champions. And Aberdeen were the champions the season before that, and the champions in 1918. So, but at least then they could sing, "We are the champions," and "Championes, Championes," because all Aberdeen supporters ever sung, "Aberdeen, Aberdeen, come on you Reds, come on you Reds, Aberdeen, come on you Reds. That's it. That's it. You know what I mean? And okay, fair enough. Since but I know back in the day, champions again, champions again, champions again. Away, away. I don't know if that was around, if that was a tune in the early to mid '80s when Aberdeen won 3 titles in 5 years or 6 seasons. But at least then there was a wee change because all they ever sang otherwise, Aberdeen, Aberdeen. You know, they might give an occasional blast of the referee's a bastard. They might do something like that. And certainly when they come to Ibrox, as they will this Saturday evening, there'll be lots of, if you hate the fucking Rangers, whatever, clap your hands. Is that a bit dated now as well? Maybe it's 30 years since anybody's sung that at the fit bar. Walking away the Rangers way, that's one that all supporters of all opposition clubs that come to Ibrox do, even for scalping them 3 or 4 nothing. The subway loyal start leaving 10 minutes to go, and walking away the Rangers, because they're stuck in, the travelling supporters or the visiting supporters are always stuck in, they're getting held back by the police and the stewards if there's any police there. So that's not a big deal. In Aberdeen, I was at the 2000 Cup final. We're talking over a quarter of a century ago when Jim Leighton got injured. He had to get taken off, and they only had Robbie Winters. They had to put an outfield player in goals. They're getting beat 4-0, going on 10-0. And at the end of the game, the Aberdeen supporters are all jumping about and singing and dancing and doing congas and stuff like that. And the Celtic end, kind of defiant. We don't care. They obviously did really care. Trying a bit too hard, but it doesn't matter how much you're punishing them on the pitch, they're still going to just sing abuse at you because they get used to coming to Ibrox. They only won, they didn't win at Ibrox for 20 odd years. So it's not about beating them. They just have these songs where they'll still sing about how much they hate us. Nice one, Simmy, nice one, son. That's nice and disgusting. They sing that one. That's the one they added that to it. But I was at that game up at Pittodrie where Neil Simpson assaulted Ian Durrant in a cowardly fashion in that game. So the Aberdeen supporters celebrate that. But that is it. When they play Celtic, we hate Rangers more than you, and the Celtic fans just laugh at them. But it's basically almost half their song sheet is about Rangers. So they need to up their game. They need to try and find something else to sing about, the Aberdeen supporters. It's getting quite, it's getting quite, they need to find out, they should sing about their own history. They've won the Cup Winners' Cup, same as us. I mean, think about the songs. We've got the last Old Firm game at Ibrox, the Scottish Cup game, the full sectarian song sheet was coming out again on both sides, and that was really depressing. Got to get that back in the bin. But it's also kind of unnecessary when you think of all the songs that we've got there. In no way sectarian, don't have any dodgy lyrics. The reworking of Caledonia is superb. The Ibroxonia, it's a tremendous song, just charting our history. And you've got, in Barcelona, 1972, Colin Steen scored 1, Willie Johnson 2. 4 lads had a dream to start a football. They've got all this stuff about all the different points in all the significant points in our history. Rangers supporters have got songs about all that. Aberdeen have got a decent history for a club of their size. They won the Cup Winners' Cup. They should be singing this. But I know they should. We won the Cup Winners' Cup in Gothenburg and we beat Real Madrid as well. But it really was a lot of travelling involved. And although we didn't take out any accommodation in Sweden, you've got the travelling the ferry there and the travelling the ferry back, and you're eating and you're drinking the whole time. And that's before you get the price of your match ticket, Dougal. And I'm just not willing to fork out that kind of level of money for me. That's absolute hell. Or something along. It's not as catchy, but just sing something about your history. Mind you, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking to myself, we've got to step up our game as well, playing Aberdeen the night, because all we ever do, when they're slagging us, all we ever sing back, sheep shagging bastards, you're only sheep shagging. But I mean, you might get the occasional, you're not singing anymore, but it's basically sheep shagging bastards, you're only sheep shagging bastards. And that, I mean, in 1983 or 1984ish, when I first went to Pittodrie following Rangers, I did think it was really funny then. Take that, zinger, burn, you know what I mean? You shag sheep, which was, the irony was going over my head because I'm from Ayrshire, and we're just as bad when it comes to the sheep bothering. So that was but it's time that one really, it's getting a bit tight, and they've taken it on board, haven't they? They've claimed it for themselves, the Aberdeen supporters. They bring inflatable sheep to their matches at Ibrox. They bring inflatable sheep because we don't care. We're sheep shaggers. We'd actually have an inflatable sheep as opposed to an inflatable woman. So we need to do something. We need to actually step up our game. I think we've got to get more specific. We've got to hit them where it hurts. But the oil industry's really struggling. Fossil fuels are a thing of the past. Why don't you go back to the fishing? The only oil you'll get now is a tin of tuna or some sunflower oil. You can work on the lyric, you can work on exactly what we're going to say, but I think we need to change the songs that we're singing at Aberdeen. We don't want to end up being as boringly repetitive as them. You can maybe have a go at obviously open goal when it comes to the Granite City. You got there, it's just all totally grey and it's quite weird. Your major buildings and some of your houses are made from a type of brick that looks like a polystyrene boulder that you would get in BBC drama department, BBC props department in a sound stage. It's supposed to be an outside location, but it's like a planet in an old 1960s episode of Doctor Who. Your bricks in your buildings look like a polystyrene boulder made by the props department for an old 1960s black and white episode of Doctor Who. It needs to get catchier, probably need to work on that, but it's something to keep us going in the morning, because obviously there was a wee riot last time I was at Ibrox. There was a wee riot going on. So I think both sets of supporters could do a bit of mental kind of work going on tomorrow night to concentrate themselves on not being mental on the part. It's a bit like that, the incident, the scene in Paradise Lost, Parade's End, where he's doing, Christopher Teigen's the main character, the protagonist. He's in a munitions. He's a stores. He's in charge of the stores and all that. And it's during the First World War, and they're getting bombarded, and him and the other posh guy that he works with are trying to distract themselves for the fact that they could die at any second if one of these shells lands on them. So he's like, oh, give me 14 words. Give me 14 words. I'll do an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G rhyme scheme. He's going to do a sonnet. He's just challenge me. They're having a sonnet writing competition. And that's so just to occupy your mind, to stop you thinking about the potential battle. What about the architecture as well? You got to, it's all very, there's something very samey about it. Never mind postmodernism. Have you even heard of modernism? Who's Mies van der Rohe? Have you heard of Le Corbusier? I mean, Union Street and that, it's quite striking when you got there at first. You've not been to Aberdeen for a while, but it's just grey. And it does look as if it's going to fall over. It looks really light. Snowed in for months. Yous have been snowed in for that. It's not very nice. I mean, deceptively freezing. Your beach is deceptively freezing. You've got a nice shore and a promenade, but it's like walking along the north. But I could go on this all night. Sorry, I just find playing Aberdeen really boring, and it's a bit of a process just now, isn't it? You've just got to get through these games and get the points on board. It's actually quite boring. It's either going to be fantastic because we win, or it's going to be a disaster because we don't. So that's quite a boring choice, really. Not a lot of subtlety going on with Rangers just now. How you doing, folks? This is your Fat Ek. Last night, my phone showed me a notification from BBC Sport saying Aston Villa host Lille in Europa League last 16 with 1-0 advantage from first leg. Listen and follow live. But my brain read it as Aston Villa need a double 16 to win the first leg versus Luke Littler at the Ali Pally. The Tito Rice is starting to get to me. How are you feeling about it? Aberdeen at Ibrox for the last time this season, and hopefully the last time we're playing them anywhere this season. Preview pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet. It's Craig and Alan. It'll be on the Gersnet YouTube channel and across all other good streaming platforms. By the time you see this, if you get round to seeing this, and that was the Gersnet preview pod on Friday night. It was shown at 9 o'clock on Friday night, and they will be discussing a lot more quickly, a lot more succinctly, a lot more objectively, subjectively, a lot more on the money than this one here. I'm sponsored by that, and I'm also sponsored by Butter Beans. By Butter Beans, you ever had butter beans? I get butter beans when I was a kid. I think my dad and my sister couldn't have liked butter beans because I never got it at home. Never got them at home. I get a wee tin of butter beans. And I think it was my maternal grandmother, my nana. No, my paternal grandmother was my gran, but my mum's mum, she was my nana. And we used to go out there a lot. Obviously, we'd go to hers, my nana and papa's. We'd go there a lot. And it'd mostly be out there during the day as a kid. So you'd be getting sweeties and a bit of lemonade, and maybe sandwiches and that. It was great. Absolutely stuffed out there. I actually blame my nana for my obesity today. But occasionally, once in a blue moon, we'd be out there long enough that we would need an actual meal. It would get towards tea time, dinner time, whatever, and we'd get a meal, and it would be potatoes and your whatever meat it was, and like, with butter beans. Every now and then you get butter beans. And being a kid, believe it or not, I'm actually a fussy eater. I'm not fussy about how much I eat of something I already like, but there's a lot that I don't like. I've got a really, really kind of backwards palate. And and also as a kid, you're looking at that going, what is that? That looks weird. Because they're like kind of plasticky looking little capsules of butter beans. Very smooth in the outside. They almost look like pebbles or something like that. Like something you would put in your garden down a wee border. But for some reason I was persuaded to actually have some. And I loved them. I really enjoyed them. It's not something I can have a lot of, but I find myself maybe once a year I'll get a wee tin of the old butter beans just to take me back. And I had them tonight. I had half of them tonight with some pork chops. I had the other half of the tin that I got. I was in the wee retail park. It's linked to Rangers at the wee retail park, a wee retail corner really. It's across from the Helen Street police headquarters, kind of diagonally across from the old St Anthony's. Was it Moor Park, McKenna Park? The old St Anthony's ground, which is now a call centre. Now that roundabout when you're coming out of Ibrox and you're heading west. That went. I was in the coffee place, Starbucks. Starbucks, Buttfox as Polly Walnuts would call it. I was in there getting a cappuccino, no chocolate for me, believe it or not, but I got a slice of carrot cake with it. Fantastic. I was in there getting in on Thursday afternoon. It's got I think it used to have a Pizza Hut, but it became a Greg's. It's now how Glasgow, how very Glasgow to have a drive-through, Greg's. Is it a drive-through? And there's a KFC. There's definitely a KFC. I've used that plenty of times. Drive-through. I was in getting a coffee yesterday, and it'd come out the place, and I'm like, oh, we need milk. Don't have any milk in the house. So just nip into it. I can never remember. I still can't remember. Is it an Aldi or a Lidl? But there's the aisle in the middle. The folk singing's coming to me. I'm getting into the folk singing in the last pod. I'm definitely going to keep that going. But I was wondering, and I wasn't really interested in the aisle in the middle. You go in for milk, but you never just come out with milk, do you? So I came out with a few things, bit of soup and all that. But I saw the butter beans. I thought, I'm getting my wife's going, what are you in? Butter beans? You have them? What is it all about? Because she doesn't like them either. And it's just, I think it's a really neutral taste. It's the one of the few food items that I like because of the texture rather than the taste, I think, as much as anything else. Because it tastes really bland. It is basically the taste of bland. It's totally inoffensive. There's nothing to it. But I never put salt and pepper or vinegar onto it. And I just want it to be like that. And it's the smoothness of it when it goes in your mouth and then you bite into it. And it's kind of like really dull potato. It's certainly no buttery and it's certainly not very beany either. But it's got the same texture as a baked bean, but the taste of a baked bean, Heinz baked beans, is that just distracts you from linking it to butter beans. But the texture's really amazing. It's the shape of them as well, and you get a kind of sediment as well at the bottom of the tin, which I didn't realise because now I'm old enough to be heating them up for myself. But when I was a kid and I was getting them up with my nana's, there'd just be a wee bit of kind of smudgy stuff at the bottom of it, and that would tell you what's essentially at the heart of the butter bean. And that somehow made it better. That's what it's like in its essence. But it's no in the wee capsule. It's no in the wee kind of plasticky capsule yet. So it's just, I don't know. I don't really know what's going on there. But a part of me just thinks sometimes, I was watching that thing about the BBC documentary about the Ultras during the week, and there's been a whole lot of stuff getting thrown at us on Tinternet. Is a lot of Celtic zealots. No, all Celtic fans, just we've both got the zealots on both sides, and it's just Celtic seem to have more of them on the actual board running the club officially than we have. But there's that thing about Rangers fans being right-wing. We're really right-wing. And actual Nazis, that was getting mentioned on the Ultras thing, some calling cards. And there has been banners at Ibrox, very fleetingly, very rarely, touching in the whole kind of horrible, it's outside forces coming in there, but touching in the whole kind of horrible Nazi stuff. It's all coming back to the fore again these days with the shifting of the Overton window. But folk, why do you support Rangers? Why do you support Rangers for? You're Mr. Progressive, Alec. And this is the person I'm imagining now is talking to me is really, really complimentary. They must be wanting money off me or something, but you're really complimentary. You're really progressive. I hate the phrase progressive. It's just humane, hopeful, trying to not want to look after everybody. Same as I want to be looked after. But I'd go to protests down at Downing Street. We'd put up the genocide that was taking place in Darfur and still is, and stuff like that. In Sudan, or the problems they're having over there. There wasn't enough attention being focused on that as far as I was concerned. I was in Amnesty International, and I think that lots of kind of left-wing stuff, and the Labour, sometimes Labour was going too kind of fundamentalist for me, other times it wasn't left-wing enough, and blah, blah. I was involved in stuff like that without being any kind of proper campaigner or anything. But folk like, the Union Jack, that's totally. I'd be involved in people's company, and then suddenly you'd mention a Rangers support, and they're like, what? They're list like fundamentalists, Nazis and stuff. No. Well, they're at least totally reactionary. Flying that Union Jack is just God and country and all that kind of stuff. That's a fitba. I'm going to the fitba. I'm no. It's just my community. It's what I come from. It's my. There's no imagination. Nobody puts any great imagination into the football team at the time they're supporting the football. Their football team is supposed to fire their imagination when they're a kid, and it's tribal. It's totally tribal. I.e., the intellectual aspect. The people who try to make themselves seem more intellectual because their football teams won. It's usually pretty much the opposite. If your football team is better than there's a whole lot of stupidity involved in it. It's a very tribal thing, as far as I'm concerned, and it's somebody who's like the Union Jack to me. I've certainly seen the Union Jack flown with hatreds and used in a horrible way. But when I see a Union Jack, this makes me feel kind of cosy, safe, whatever. I see it misused a lot, as I say. I never want to be like an actual flag shagger or anything like that. I don't want it hung up everywhere just for the sake of getting folks' faces about it. But I don't see 9 times out of 10. I just think, fine. Feel a bit safe. That's my. I just see it as a big Rangers scarf. If I'm honest, I don't see it as God and country or whatever, the Union and blah blah blah. But that's just somebody says to me, why I just think butter beans. It's just like butter beans. So we'll start off with the snagging. We'll start off with the snagging lists. Sorry, my name's Alec Anderson, and forgive me, Mr. Mohican drug pusher, but you've got shit in your shoes, and I'm the shoe shine boy. And he just lays them out. That's top. It's brilliant. And no, because he was there. He were in Nam. So it's in acting. It's real. It's Mr. Mohican drug pusher. Forgive me, you've got shit in your shoes, and I'm the shoe shine boy. Yes, folks. Chuck Norris, ladies and gentlemen, is now officially and forevermore will be missing in action. Absolute shame. Not as much of a shame, though, as Jenny Murray. Jenny Murray from Women's Hour, most famous for presenting Women's Hour, for me anyway, on Radio 4, first working from home. Oh, God, but 2010, 2011, I was still, before I'd got addicted to the whole YouTube thing like everybody else, and I was addicted to Radio 4, but listening to Radio 4 all through the day instead of working. But I'd always listen to Women's Hour, and when Jenny Murray was on it especially, every man should listen to Women's Hour. I think it's more important sometimes for men than it is for women. But Jenny Murray, it's just a fantastic voice for radio. It just made you feel as if she was talking to you in person. And she was the only person out of all the stuff on Radio 4 that was addicted to and was listening to it all the time. She was the only person this is Women's Hour Radio 4. My name's Jenny Murray, good morning. And I just go, good morning, Jenny. Every day, just good morning, Jenny. Well, not every day, but only when she was on it. But she's passed away today, and that's a damn shame. An absolute legend. So I'll start off with the snagging items. I did my wee podcast outside the other night. I went to Rupert Street, 19 Rupert Street, and there's a whole lot of folk associations with that, the folk revival. But what I didn't tell you, I kid you not, is when I parked the car, took the car down to Kelvin Bridge, underground the parking right, there's a wee car park there just in the banks of the Kelvin. Which, because you'll know that because I was totally out of breath when I was walking 2 yards, so obviously there's no way I was walking all the way down there, but I to get down to that part of the world, to go and see Burnbank, or the streets where Burnbank Rangers' first enclosed ground once was. I took the car down there, I parked it, and I knew I was going to go and see 19 Rupert Street as well, which is, I explained it in the pod, on the associations with the Scottish folk revival scene back in the 60s. I parked the car, and obviously just facing the car's facing the River Kelvin, the banks of the Kelvin, because the weather was beautiful. During the week, it's been a beautiful week of weather here in Glasgow, as you know. I kid you not, there is 3 students sitting there. 2 blokes with guitars, 1 woman singing. A cappella, whatever. Sorry, I shouldn't sing a cappella, she's singing the guitar, acoustic guitar accompaniment, and they're all sitting cross-legged on the banks of the Kelvin. The most kind of counter-culture looking scene of anybody's seen outside Woodstock. There's 3 of them just sitting there. But this, even when I went to Glasgow Uni, the years I spent there, I've never seen anything that looked so studenty, hippie, counter-culture, folk revival in my life. And this is when I happened to be driving there. So maybe that's a good sign for Rangers winning the league somehow. So the snagging items for that podcast, I was out of breath. I was out of breath because I'm so unfit, and it was out of sync, but at least I was out the house. Really technically bad podcast, folks. Really sorry about that. I'm so unfit. It's ridiculous. But the best old man moment of it was me discussing the Rise of the Ultras documentary. It was on BBC Scotland. There are a few issues with that, but I just wanted to discuss it as well. But to prove that, almost to prove there was no way I thought I was involved in the Ultras movement. I was talking about myself as a young guy, and it was the casuals when I was a kid. I was remembering this the other day as well. Me and my pals did make a banner. The first Old Firm game that was live in the Title League game. Ian Durrant and Davy Cooper layoff. Ian Durrant 1-0, 86-87 right at the start of the season, as soon as his first season. That was... we're in the East Enclosure. You didn't call yourself an ultra that night. You just wanted to go to the mad mental singing bits, and it was for an Old Firm game. It was the East Enclosure, right at the tunnel, because the Celtic fans had the whole of the West Enclosure, and that's where we were all heading. For Ardrossan and Salkits, we're heading up the train, and let's get the bed sheet and spray paint something on it. And that was our idea. That was the best. The nearest we had to a tifo back in ancient Scotland when I was a kid. It was something to do with Maurice Johnson, who was playing for Celtic at the time, and how he was crap compared to Ali McCoist. And like this podcast, like everything I've ever done, it was too convoluted and verbose. But we're all... we had it. It was amongst all the Union Jacks and Saltires and that we had up on the train windows on the way up there. And we had it up in the east, like, oh, the hunters of folk are holding it up. What does it say? What does it say? And my mates were all too embarrassed to tell folk. It just says, fuck the Pope. Oh, nice one, nice one. It was something about their comparative goal scoring records per game or something like that. That was an awful banner. It was awful, but I was into all that when I was a kid. But the moment that proved in my last podcast was when I proved that I'm no longer a kid, not by a long stretch, was when I got floaters. I said floaters instead of surfers. You know the flags, the banners that come down on the tifos just now? It was Manpreet, the Partick Thistle fella, who's a big fan of Rangers, when he... And using not... Wayne's World, it's like 30 years ago. That's another sign of exactly how ancient I am. But... he was on it, Manpreet, the Partick Thistle Ultras guy. He's showing you him setting up a tifo in the home end at Firhill, hours before a game was kicking off at Firhill. And he's telling folk, all right, you want to get the flags down the front here, we've got the thing on every seat, and then you have the surfers coming in, we'll have 3 surfers coming in, intermittently, and the fella's got, the guy's doing a documentary saying, what's a surfer? And I'm thinking, what's a surfer? He said, that's the bits that come down across the top of it. No, you've seen it at Ibrox, where everybody will be holding up their placards or their bit of polythene, and you think, oh, that's the tifo done, it's finished, everybody in that stand's holding something up, that looks great. But then over the top of it will come a massive... it's crowd surfing, basically, a massive extra banner, like a big, huge Rangers crest that will just get held, over the top of everything. So it's, you can't see the game if you're underneath it, but it looks fantastic for the outside. But it's just it's crowd surfing. It's surfing across the top of the tifo. But I called it a floater. Didn't they floaters? That's the most old man moment in podcast history. They got the floaters coming down the tap. Surfers, I like surfers. Number 2, in terms of the snagging items, which is actually just more ways of discussing Rangers. And the snagging items seems like I'm not getting to the point about the Aberdeen, but it's just a wee podcast about Rangers. So did I make it clear? I don't know if I articulated this properly on Wednesday night's podcast. That I think Danny Röhl's constantly changing the team in ways that will work long term, have been working long term. I was making a point where I was just listing various changes he'd made to our formation, moving players about. For it, like Ryan Nadiri, we can't have Chermiti playing up front on his own. He needs a partner. Well, no, he's got Nadiri playing with him. He played up front with him at Livingston and at Paisley at the weekend. Didn't it work too well then, but it worked when he's playing against Hearts and Celtic at Ibrox, still to varying degrees of success. I'm always banging on about how Nico Raskin isn't a 6, he's an 8. Well, he pushed up Nico Raskin to play 8 on Sunday against St Mirren. He was probably our best player, Nico Raskin. It's because I was trying to talk to this attitude that comes out, understandably, amongst Rangers fans, where we think anything bad about the team has always been happening and will happen forevermore. I'm sick of seeing Gassama getting put in wide right, or put it in the right hand side of midfield. Doesn't it work? He's got to go left. He's got to get played left. I think it's happened. It does happen a lot this season. But Danny Röhl will change that. Scott Olsen just isn't doing it. He's not doing it at all. Well, he'll change it. He has changed everything. He's basically sacked James Tavernier from being the guy who was guaranteed to be first on every team sheet. And I think there was a feeling amongst Rangers supporters, certain Rangers supporters, that Tav's untouchable. Doesn't matter how bad his performance is, or doesn't matter how old he is, he'll never get... Well, Daniel sorted that out straight away. He's made major changes to the team. John Suter, it wasn't working out. Right, he gets dumped. And Jiga comes back in. That's with a couple of clean sheets in the back of that. I was just trying to talk about how we always think bad stuff's happening all the time, myself included, and nothing's getting done about it. Danny Röhl is ridiculously flexible. That Ultras documentary is one more snagging point. Yeah, I forgot to mention that this whole thing where it's been highlighted, our Nazis want to associate themselves with Rangers very, very briefly. That kind of stuff happened, and I'd mentioned the fact that I felt as if it was out of order, like all the other Ultras were getting portrayed as kind of comparatively progressive, even if they were a bit transgressive in the way they were doing it. Whereas ourselves, the focus was a few times that Nazi nutters have managed to attach themselves to our club, but I see no praise at all for our continual reverence for the armed, which goes too far at times as well, probably, but our continual kind of reverence for the armed services, for the armed forces in Britain, the people who went out and actually fought. Your actual Nazis in the Second World War in Britain fought in the Second World War longer than any other nation. From day one to the very end of the Second World War, far longer than the Americans, for example. We went in there and we were involved from day one. I know reverence for the armed services. If it goes OTT, that's one of the first signs of creeping fascism in a country. But these people need to be looked after. Our armed forces need to be looked after. Service people get treated terribly. We seem to be getting no kind of praise for that. It's just something to mention. Point 4, I also forgot to mention that the Ultras documentary came to the conclusion that the Tartan Army are probably the ultimate Ultras, or the proto-Scottish Ultras. Please, no, that's just, sorry. Never mind the fact that we're whitewashing what the Tartan Army was like before the drink was banned in Scotland, or that the thing of behaving well, selling themselves for behaving so well, it's a bit cringe at times, and it's also deeply bigoted. It's the only reason we're no rioting is because England fans do. And the closest I've come to actually being involved in a fight in the stands in an actual football stadium was at a Scotland game, a Scotland supporter. He didn't have the kilt on and all that, so it's not so bad, but I was just at the kind of dividing line between ourselves, and next to me was that big, it was up at the Rangers end, and I'm doing the front of the main stand in a little row of individual seats. I was at the game myself. Kind of got a lot of Rangers supporters to come with me to Scotland games, I don't know why, but it's the big kind of emergency exit bit is to your left, the big drop down to the emergency exit where the buses can come in and out. And then on the other side of that is all the Slovakia fans. It was a qualifying against Slovakia, and they're all lined up. So at half time, these drunken Scotland fans who seem to be on their first pint and also their first football, but guys in their 30s and that, kept coming across to want to have a go. It's like it was like their first football match and they'd only watched it on the telly, and they wanted to be, these are wankers. They were copying people they'd seen on the telly. It was really painful. But one of the guys kept fucking leaning in front of me. He was pissed. He kept leaning right in front, like where I was standing basically in my foot space at my seat, to lean across this wall, this gap, and really bravely shout at supporters who were on a massive emergency exit away from him. And I eventually just brainging across me, I thought I'll try and sort this diplomatically. And I said, if they start throwing stuff at me, they'll... it'll be me. If he starts throwing stuff at you, it'll be me that hits, you know. And he's like, well, fucking set somebody else. I was like, right, yeah. And I was like, what? And he's like, I can't set somebody else. And he started squaring up to me. So I just basically squared up, but I never touched the guy. I never actually put a hand on him. And he fell. He did. He just fucking fell because he was so pissed. He slipped and he went backwards, and I watched it like slow motion. And as the back of his skull headed towards the corner of a riser and what is it? Riser and the step. Anyway, the concrete steps. You've got a hand in front of me. I thought he's going to kill himself, or he's going to end up a fucking paraplegic or something like that. Because I've squared up to him, you know, after he'd squared up to me. But luckily, a lot of other people saw it. It turned out security guys come running out, and they'd been watching him, so I was okay. But that was a tartan army. I thought I was going to get done for manslaughter or something. A lighter subject, Danny Röhl. Another, I was saying in that podcast the other night that I thought Danny Röhl could be away in the summer. He could be away if he wins the league with Rangers. It's like, oh, he saved Sheffield Wednesday from relegation. Wins the league with Rangers again, joining them halfway through the season almost. This guy's brilliant. He's got so many contacts, so much good coaching history. He'll end up getting back to a big job in Germany. He'll get headhunted. He'll go to the championship, like a championship promotion candidate with all its parachute payments from the Premier League down in England. That'll be him. He'll be away from us, and that was a good way for Rangers fans that I've been cynical about the whole. I think you feel better if you're cynical about something. You don't let the hope get to you. You don't want to be too naively hopeful. Well, think about it that way. We're going to lose a whole lot of players and maybe even more head coach if we win the league. They're just passing through, just using us. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. There's a cynical angle. I can believe we're going to win the league this season now. But of course, if we do win the league, there's a good chance we could go straight into the Champions League group stage. I think he would probably want to go at that, wouldn't he? He'd probably want to go at that. Maybe not. Maybe the lure of going back to Germany would be too much from that's all he's after. But there you go. Another thing, and it's a beautiful segue, on the last of my snagging items, Russell Martin. I've been saying since the 3rd of January that him and Nancy, Russell Martin and Wilfried Nancy had both 6 league games in charge of an Old Firm side this season, and Russell Martin got 1 point more. He gained 1 point more in his time at Rangers than Nancy got in his time at Celtic. So how these guys are both viewed as disasters. So how funny would it be that Russell Martin's actually won us the league? And if we win the league by a point, he's actually won us the league. You know, because if we won it by a point from Celtic, which could still happen. That's garbage. Russell Martin had 7 league games in charge of Rangers. I don't know why I kept thinking it was 6. I think I just liked the idea of the coincidence too much. So he actually gained 8 points in his time at Rangers. It's 5 draws, 1 loss to Hearts, and 1 win against Livingston. Wow, it's sensational. So 5 draws, 1 loss, and 1 win. So that's 5 points from the 5 draws, and then 3 points. But that's 8 points. Whereas Nancy had like 6 games in charge of Celtic, 6 league games. This is. He lost 4 of those league games and won 2 of them. So he only. But Russell Martin actually lost a point more than Nancy, because he's got the 1 loss, and then it's 10 points dropped from the 5 draws, and then 3 points dropped. So he's dropped 13 points as opposed to Nancy's 12. So maybe it still works out that he gained a point more than him. Just thought I'd clear that up, and beautifully segue into the fact that Russell Martin, of course, came out of hiding. Nice to see him surfacing again. Nice to see him floating in again. He come Radio 5 Live on Monday. It was the Monday Night Club. He was on that with Chris Sutton, Chappers, and one other. Was it Robbie Savage? I don't know. I just saw kind of video clips of what he was saying, of what Russell Martin was saying, that went along with his quotes being all over the BBC website, the Rangers page on the BBC Sports website. And it was, first and foremost, I think it was good to see him, to know that he's fairly healthy and he's back to his old self. He just looked and sounded like his old self, because I really was worried the guy was going to have a nervous breakdown or something, the treatment he got from us. And he did say that it was all his fault. What went wrong with the team when he was there was his fault, but it was obvious he didn't actually believe that, and he said he'd do everything the same way again, except for the stuff that he'd do differently, and he just looked and sounded like his old self, including the hair and all that. He refused to say he wasn't hurt by the experience. If you say he was hurt by the experience, he wouldn't say how much, but he did. But the abuse he received, basically, but he did cite it as a reason he may have come across a tad punchy in 1 or 2 of his press conferences. At the time, his kids couldn't go to Ibrox. His kids couldn't come to the games to watch him because of the abuse he was taking. I was going to those games. You were too, and it was horrific. I've never seen anything like it or heard anything like it. I think I'm slagging Aberdeen supporters at the start of the pod. You've got to, for wanting attention from us in a kind of way that helps them relive their glory days, are kind of on our coattails. If we set up a derby type rivalry with a massive club who's winning much more than we ever will, then we're the same somehow, and it doesn't work at all. I think we were the same when it came to Russell Martin. If we are really, because he was talking about it as his only experience of managing in Scotland, so he was talking about it as that's just the way things are at Rangers. But it isn't. I've never seen or heard anything like that. It's got close a few times. But from the outset, to me, it felt performative. A lot of it felt performative. Like, if we make ourselves look as toxic as possible towards a guy that we don't think is going to win, and that just shows the standards we've got. It was like they couldn't something. I think I said this at the time. We used to go on Christmas nights out when I was working in these kind of office jobs and that, and you would get, if you're going for a meal or something, you would always get the restaurant or whatever they were going to fax you through. It was in the days when you get it fax through the menu so we can get a look at it, and there'd always be somebody it's getting passed around, and it's fine, whatever. I'm just like, if there's alcohol and food, I'm gone, no bother. But there'd be some folk who'd be, oh no, oh god, oh no, I couldn't eat that, oh god, no, I could, oh no. And it's performative. It's like, I've got standards, but you're actually just showing yourself up as something. I thought that's what we were like when it came to that. But Russell Martin, he seems to have survived it, and I hope he does well in whatever job he's doing now. He missed out the fact that he played Mikey Moore far too wide. He was talking about Mikey Moore as if to say, I got Mikey Moore in, and look, he's a great player now. So if you just give me time, I'd ended up the same way. But Danny Röhl came in and just went, do you want to step inside one, Mikey? And that was Mikey Moore. Fantastic. I heard nothing about the fact he let us suffer a record defeat in Bruges, a record equalling defeat in Bruges, but he's consistent in his reasons for going early on the players in that Motherwell game, the opening league game of the season. We drew one each at Fir Park, and he said, I went in there because I felt it needed doing. I said the same to the players in the dressing room, as I said to the media, and I told them I would be telling the media the same stuff I just told them. I think he was quite right as well at the time, because there obviously was a lot of people who weren't following exactly what he wanted to do. It wasn't obvious, but we'd heard the rumours, and I think what happened with Nico Raskin, Nico's definitely at it, and you're thinking he's maybe leading a clique or some sort of rebellious group within the dressing room. Guys not buying into it at all. But he also resisted the chance, from the bits I heard anyway, of saying that the guy who drew with that day, and he mentioned that he was asked about Hearts and Motherwell doing really well, and he was talking about Jens Bertol-Askew, but he didn't bother. That's his ex-teammate and a guy he'd went on coaching courses with, and he could have said, well, look at what Motherwell have done. Getting a draw at Fir Park is actually quite a good result. No, and on the first day of the season, Celtic have lost at Fir Park, for example. And he could also say that proves, if you just stuck with me, I think the same way as Jens Bertol-Askew, if you stuck with me, Rangers would be at that point just now. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there's a certain type of club that Jens Bertol-Askew's ideology works at. I think Rangers are just too big, but I think he wasn't too bad. His interview, he seemed quite kind of pretty much the same, but he did admit that he brought in too many young, inexperienced players at the start who maybe weren't ready to stand up to the Ibrox crowd, who would be, he could have done with hanging on to some of the old stagers a bit longer just to help bleed in the new system that he was trying to implement. I did not want Russell Martin to come in as manager or head coach when he was announced as being a candidate for the job. My heart sank, and I said that on here. And it's a good thing about having the podcast. The tapes are there, so to speak. But when he did get the job, I thought I'd get on board, and it was made easier by the fact that I thought Kevin Thelwell had been straight out appointed by Parag Marat and Andrew Kavanagh. I thought they appointed Thelwell. I'm not sure if that was the case. I still haven't actually looked into that, which is terrible. Because I knew they would be absolutely viciously efficient. I knew Marathi and Kavanagh, despite all the bonhomie and being very diplomatic and coming across really well when they're talking with the press and talking with the fans. Andrew Kavanagh at the away stand on Sunday there at St Mirren, glad handing a few bears. But I feel as if the money they make, the business they make their money through the businesses and the amount of money they've made, they're going to be vicious. They're going to be absolutely ruthless. Businessmen, they are here to make a profit, and they want to start making a profit straight away. They start laying the groundwork. So I thought they must have signed off on approved Russell Martin, or certainly the people who appoint. They didn't. I knew they hadn't appointed Patrick Stewart, but no, that wasn't the case at all. It turns out, but also the fact that we had been complaining as a support for it, and not myself. I was all about Europe. I wanted us to do well in Europe. I still want us to do well in Europe. This season's been horrific, even though compared to seasons in the past, just to get into a group stage like this is quite amazing. But I wanted us to do really well in Europe all the time, whereas other Rangers supporters just saw that as a hindrance to the main target, which should be to start winning the league regularly again. And that's absolutely fine. And the way to do the problem, I think we've forgotten it now, but the problem, even back in the summer there, was all about, number one, we keep changing manager, so we've got to stick by somebody. And number two, we've got to know how to overwhelm teams. We've got to know how to beat the low block. Up against these wee provincial diddy teams, have got to work out. I'm fair, so we've got to work out how to beat the low block. And Russell Martin's style was all about that. We were told it was going to be painful, not just by Russell Martin, but by every other club he'd worked at. Their supporters, but Swansea, it did eventually work to the stage where he gets a Southampton job, and it really worked there because it got him the took a few tankings. He get beat 6-0 off Bruges. That's fine. No, it wasn't. It was horrific, but I could, you're thinking, okay, maybe this is part of the plan. Maybe this is the serious tanking we've got to take before it clicks up a gear. It's something we wanted. We wanted somebody who could just. Now, football changed under Russell Martin's feet. I think everything's just changed under his feet. I think he's working with too old a template when it comes to the attack, and it's too ideological as well. But it was ticking the boxes of what we as a support seemed to be demanding. When we were thinking in the abstract about what we wanted for Rangers, what we needed. And we just kept changing managers. We keep changing. We'd like 3 managers last season. We've had 3 already this season. It's no working. We're no winning the league. I think we could win it this season, but it's really not been working for us. So we just needed to do something different. Apart from anything else, we needed to do something different. And the main thing was we couldn't complete a whole season with the same manager we started it with. What happened? And I know that because believe it or not, the Rangers podcasting game isn't as full of bonhomie and camaraderie as you might in no way imagine. There's a lot of kind of pettiness there, would you believe it or not? I'm doing these it's 52 minutes in, and all I've talked about is butter beans and being done by the banks of the Kelvin. I'm obviously not interested in making a profit. I don't think this is the way. The way ahead is just get straight into what I think the starting 11 should be against Aberdeen, what tactics we should play, what the acceptable result would be, the scoreline. Just get into that straight away. Be hard hitting, decisive all the time when you're in your patter, and make the podcast no more than 20 minutes long. Absolutely, views through the roof, tremendous. It's not what I want to do. This is for me. And if you want to join in, and you happen to find anything that coincides with you want to hear or discuss, that's great. You don't have to watch this. I'm just here to get something out my system that I need to get out my system. But there's guys out there who take it really personal. It's a job, and maybe if you're working for the Rangers Review, you're a full-time journalist or whatever, then yeah, great. I can see the point. But they're actually the guys who'd be least likely to have a problem. They don't even notice guys like me, obviously. But there's some boys out there who have got it in their head that can make major money from this, and it's all about, they spend more time kind of bitching and undermining other Rangers podcasts than actually. So I get a lot of people get in touch with me who obviously weren't just normal, just folk out there who just want to listen to some Rangers patter. There was some sort of trying, because it was almost like you backed Russell Martin, you backed him for the whole time, you loved him, and knew that he's away. You're not going to admit that you got it wrong and all that. It's all this kind of stuff. And you can't get worked because there's somebody like that getting in touch with you all the time. But I'd been on Gersnet as well, and this isn't coming for Gersnet. I've been on Gersnet, which I don't go on any other podcast because Gersnet's the only one I kind of trust. And I was on with Ben on it, and it was just that it was the game. It was a Friday night preview pod. We just lost 6-0 to Bruges, one of the hardest defeats of Rangers history and my life, therefore. And it was basically, Russell Martin's got to go, hasn't he? And I was saying, well, no, yet. So that's me backing Martin to the hilt. And I did like Russell Martin. It was a big thing culturally for Rangers as well, because the abuse he was taking, and it was toxic, a lot of it focused on the fact he was vegan. You know, it was just vegan this, vegan that, vegan this, vegan wanker, vegan cunt, vegan. It was, if you go into social media, any post that Rangers would put out on social media, underneath it, the replies from Rangers fans who wanted rid of Russell Martin would just focus on him being woke and a vegan. I thought, this is fucking, this isn't good for the old image. This isn't good just for humanity in general. We've just got to be more caring. We've got to stick together as people, as far as I'm concerned. But there we go. I did like. I wanted him to succeed for that, but I was out there. It's there for anybody to see that I didn't want him to come as manager. But once he did, I started getting it. I'm old school. I want to back anybody. I want to give anybody a chance. But more cynically, and I stopped in the middle of this podcast with Ben when I was saying, no, I don't think it's time for him to get sacked yet. And I stopped in the middle of it and I just said, can I just make one thing clear here, Ben, before we go any further? Russell Martin has in no way convinced me he's good enough to be Rangers manager. I just don't think we're at the point yet where we can sack him. That's all. And we should try something. We need to try something. We need to try and hang on to a manager for a change. This bad start to the season scans with everything else we've heard about him, how he starts at places before he starts succeeding. So I just felt as if we weren't at the stage yet where we could be sure it was time to sack him. He had the great win against Polzenia. We beat them 3-0 at home in the Champions League second qualifier that we played. That was great. The win against Panathinaikos, which wasn't convincing, it was a great night. But it wasn't. There was nothing really convincing going. There was no signs there that he really knew what he was doing. It was just, for me, it was just a case of we need to give him just a bit more time to make sure. And when he we drew at Falkirk that day, the day he was sacked, that was the perfect time. By that point, by about 20 minutes into that game against Falkirk, he's got to go. It's a sliding scale. You can give certain managers, you could probably give everybody enough time they would eventually start succeeding if you gave them endless time in the job. But it's got to work on a sliding scale. When are we at the point where he looks like he's starting to lose it, go backwards at a time where he should be starting to show signs of progress? That was it. It wasn't going to go any further. It was never going to get better. I think the celebrations, him and his backroom team, when we scored that last second winner against Livingston, that told me, that confirmed, you don't get this. You don't get this at all. You're celebrating this like you've won the Champions League final. This is, no, you're not understanding it. But the Falkirk game, we're winning that game 1-0 at half time. I'm pretty sure we're in 1-0 at half time, but by the time it got to, I think Majowski scored the goal, this isn't working at all. It's time for him to go. And he was sacked that night. That's all it was with Russell Martin. And I'd also felt, I'm not rewriting history here because I did stick it. I said it's no time to sack him. That was the emphasis. It's no time to sack him, and I believe he can turn it around. He can turn it around. But I made it clear that I didn't see anything other than a couple of games, but particularly that Polzenia game that kind of convinced me it was going. He was getting there so far in his time at his short time at Ibrox, but when he mentioned this on 5 Live, he kind of compromised his idea as well. It was difficult doesn't really scan with the fact he's admitted that he shouldn't have got rid of as many players as he did or brought in so many young players. That was something he seemed to want to do. That was part of his plan. So he was uncompromising in that, but he's admitting it was a mistake. But I could see that he was compromising on the Nico Raskin thing. Raskin did need called out. Raskin is a guy we can't sell because he's so valuable, but he only turns up when he feels like it. He only turns up for games. He's not consistent enough and never has been. Sometimes he's been played out of position, but it's. And I thought Russell Martin just needs guys to go out and just do their job all the time. Nico Raskin isn't a guy you can rely on. There was all sorts of rumours about him having fallouts with him at training, him being a bit, kind of insubordinate at training. And we didn't play in the game against Celtic, the first league Old Firm game of the season at Ibrox, that 0-0, after we'd lost 6-0 to Bruges. I was like, that's fine. Get rid of him. We thought he was going to be leaving because it was just coming up to the end of the transfer window, the summer transfer window. And when he come back in, I thought maybe it was a mistake. That when we beat Polzenia 3-0 at Ibrox, Tavernier and Raskin come on after we were 3-0 up. I thought that was fine. I thought that was quite good. It's like, there you go, there's no bitterness here. You're going to get a chance to get back into the team, but doing it the way I want to do it, everybody doing what they're told, we've just blown that team away 3-0 in a decent level of European football. I thought it was fine, but when he brings Nico Raskin back in and he plays him against Hibernian, that was the worst, because I think it was the worst thing for Russell Martin. That was the night, of course, where Ibrox was horrifically toxic about Russell Martin. There was organised protests. It was a Saturday evening kick-off. It was in the League Cup, and he beats his first top-flight Scottish opponent as manager. But it's Nico Raskin that scores the goal, because Nico knows he brings him back into the team to start in the team, and Raskin has one of these nights. It's all about him, so that's fine. It's like playing against Celtic or playing a big European game. Nico Raskin will really turn up. This was Nico Raskin's night, and the fans had been singing his name. The fans who hated Russell Martin from the word go had been singing Nico Raskin's name in his absence. So it was Barry Ferguson against Paul Le Guen all over again. So Raskin, of course, scores the first goal as we beat Hibs. So even when he gets his first win against top-flight Scottish opposition, Russell Martin, he's already compromised himself by making it about Nico Raskin. My name's Alec Anderson, and I'm old enough to remember when DC Fontaines were called half man, half biscuit, when Green Day were called stiff little fingers. I mean, you two were good. So having blasted and blitzed and destroyed the team that Stephen Robinson has just left last weekend, keeping them in 10th, we're now hoping to slap bang and wallop the club that Stephen Robinson has just joined, Aberdeen, to keep them in 9th. We're not so much, I keep saying we're like a Tour de France, a clever cyclist in the Tour de France who's sitting in the back wheel of the fellow at the head of the course, just ready for a bit of downhill stretch so he can just get on past him, let him take the headwind in it. But I don't think it's anything like that. It came to me the other night, that's a bad analogy, because I was doing that thing of driving along Great Western Road, just coming back from Morrison's up the road. But we're not so much like a Tour de France cyclist rangers in this league campaign, this league race, the way we're timing it. I think we're more like a kind of 43-year-old vegetarian veterinarian who's come down the switchback on his bike. He's cycling home during rush hour, and it's that thing where he's constantly, every time you hit the lights, and then he comes onto Great Western Road, and every time you hit the lights, he catches up with you again. So you've got to do that thing of he gets in front of you, and because it's a dual carriageway, you need to pull out to get past him, but you can't, because it's so busy in the outside lane, so you're constantly having to slow down and stop, because that's more weird, like that annoying cyclist, that a real world cyclist on the roads there. Good omens in terms of omens. Well, it's back-to-back Old Firm games involving the Scottish Cup where we had a bad result. That's 1990-91 season. We had the St Patrick's Day Massacre, they called it. I think only beat us 2-0. Celtic beat us 2-0 in the Scottish Cup. Lot of sending it off at Parkhead, and then the following Sunday, they beat us 3-0 in the league. The suspension's kicking in, obviously. Willie Collum on VAR that day, but we win the league and the League Cup that season. Celtic finished the season trophyless. They had 1997-98. Jonas Tern and Jörg Alberts cracking goals, the two of them against Celtic one Sunday at Ibrox in the league races neck and neck. We'd gone for 10 in a row, beat them 2-0. Following Sunday, beat them in the Scottish Cup semi-final, played at Parkhead because Hampden was getting redeveloped. So we win both those games. Again, one's involved in the Scottish Cup. Celtic win the league and the League Cup that season as well. And 2010-2011, you had Rangers... two successive games in the Scottish Cup, because we drew 2 each with Celtic at Ibrox, and we didn't go to penalties in those days. It went to a replay, which we lost at Parkhead, few sendings off and that, and blah, blah. So we end up bad results for us across the 2 games. Celtic are the winner across the 2 games. We win the league and the League Cup that season. So I think that's... Well, Celtic didn't beat us in the league game, but it was good results for them across the double header, one involving the Scottish Cup. So it's a sign that we're going to win the league, as is the fact if we can beat Aberdeen this evening, that'll be a clean sweep against Aberdeen in the league. This season, we definitely did that anyway in 2020-2021 season when we won 55. The last time we won the league, we beat Aberdeen every single time we played them. All 4 games. In fact, we beat them in the first league game of the season. We beat them in the last league game of the season, Pittodrie, Ibrox. And we beat them 4-0. Obviously, we'd secured the league a long time before we played them for the last time that season, but it was Stephen Glass's Aberdeen, and we had to keep a clean sheet to set this new British defensive record, and we did. And some of the chances that Aberdeen missed in that game were quite incredible, but we did keep that clean sheet, and it was just all about the trophy presentation. And my mates Robert and watching it going, I wonder who's going to bring it. There's no COVID and all that. I wonder who's going to present the trophy. And then John Gregg comes walking down the tunnel with the league trophy in his hand. That was one of the most emotional moments in our club's history and in your life and in mine. So the signs there, if we can beat Aberdeen, it's a clean sweep against Aberdeen. We did that last time we won the league. Talking of all the departures in my last pod we could have in the summer, Nico Raskin won't be one of them. Nico Raskin's going to go to the World Cup with Belgium and win it. He'll play at 8, he'll be top scorer in the tournament, he'll score the win on the final. And everybody else will be leaving. You know, Max Aarons and all that is going to be going away and stuff. Giga will probably go, he'll go back to Wolves or whatever. Will sell Emi Fernandez to Bayern Munich for £40 million, but Manny Fernandez. But Nico Raskin, he'll still be here, and it'll be like, we make him captain. Should we make him captain to keep him? But are we going to play him at 6? Or are we going to play him at 8? I don't know if 6 is really a position anymore. It'll be here to January, you know. And this is our first game at Ibrox since the one that ended in a wee riot against the club we're obliged to dislike most after Celtic, and whose fans are always as self-consciously disgusting to us as Celtic fans are. It's interesting to see if Aberdeen tried to incite anything. Remember, they were recently allowed to bring a Kill All Huns banner. They weren't allowed to. They smuggled it in and out of the game. A decade ago, they turned up en masse, the Aberdeen casuals, most of them pensioners by that point in time, at Ibrox Underground. Because they all got on in the West End. They got on at Hillhead, Brave, and they turned up at Ibrox Underground. They get instantly kettled by the police, which is what they were expecting. Then they want the Loudon pouring out to greet them, and so they got to take a few selfies and all that. They were singing a few songs and acting hard until they were escorted by the police to Ibrox. So it'll be interesting to see how that wee documentary about the ultras coming out during the week as well. It'll be interesting to see how the twats, the visiting twats, react, and moreover how police and stewards react to the people whose reaction I'm most interested in, the Union Bears. I look forward to the tifo. Seen the last pod for the hatchet job? I thought it did on us, a rusty claw. That's it. My last pod. I've got a wee note here so that I can hardly make it my own writing. I was talking about that Ultras documentary. I don't want to go on about it anymore. The BBC Scotland 3-part documentary. It's on iPlayer. Rise of the Ultras. I thought it did a wee bit of a hatchet job on us. I was mentioning in my last pod in some detail, but I maybe not a hatchet, more kind of raw, a kind of rusty claw hammer type of job. Not quite a hatchet job, but is he training with the senior team or not? Raman Bargas was demanding. What's going on? Derek Cornelius, I had no idea there was a problem with Derek Cornelius. I've just obviously not got my ear to the ground. Jesse Marsch, the Canadian national team boss, was talking about something being lost in translation. He was trying to assist in the situation between Danny Röhl at Rangers and Derek Cornelius, who we've got on loan, of course. Defender we've got on loan. Been out injured since November. They got on loan from Olympic Marseille. I didn't realise there was a situation there at all. But Raman was very demanding today. Raman, he's throwing his weight around at the old pressers these days. Just going to clarify this. What is going on? Danny Röhl, is he training with the senior team or not? And Danny Röhl went straight into not reacting like somebody who doesn't know there's a problem and wants to be kind of diplomatic, but also the man in charge. And he's like, yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with Derek that will remain private, and I'll have another conversation with him when he comes back from international duty, for which he's released him early, and he's been training on his own in the last week, and he's released him early. Now, just you can say it. You can go away anytime you like. So there's obviously some sort of problem there. I don't know what it was that's happened. I don't know if his rehabilitation, he's not been putting the work in, but it seemed quite convivial. As far as that's what it's quite good about Danny Röhl. It's obviously a matter that's been sorted out internally, and he's going to have the last say about it. But there was no kind of grandstanding. It was just smooth it all over. And he obviously does take it in his stride, Danny Röhl. It's not an effort for him to try and act as if it's not a big deal, but also put over the fact that he's very much the boss. But he says, I'll have another chat with him when he gets back, and then we'll kind of sort out his future. But he's keen for him to do well. He understands that Derek Cornelius wants to play for his national team, and he wants to. And I thought, is Jesse Marsch a bit of a dick? And I thought, no, I think it's I think there may have been something that happened when he was at Leeds that I saw an interview from him on Match of the Day, a post-match interview from Jesse Marsch, and I thought, wow, that sounds like nonsense. But he did end up getting sacked there, so maybe he was a bit under pressure at the time. But I'm thinking about the incident with Craig Bellamy as well. And he is a massive dick, Craig Bellamy, a total arsehole. But he had done that thing of he was squaring up to the Canada bench in the technical area. The classic Martin O'Neill Celtic type thing where it's like, if we get beat, we'll change the subject. We'll invent a reason to be outraged that will maybe distract from the fact that we've just lost. But it was Derek Cornelius scored the only goal of the game in that friendly, just as we'd signed him on loan from Marseille. Canada beat Wales 1-0 at Swansea, and at the end of it, and Jesse Marsch is going, I don't know what the disrespect was. I don't know what I did, but Craig Bellamy was outraged at the Canadian. I mean, who could be outraged at Canada? You've got Craig Bellamy and Donald Trump, fucking two of the biggest wankers on the planet. So that was quite. I'm getting confused with that, but he was saying, Jesse Marsch, that he tried to intervene, because obviously he's his manager. He's Derek Cornelius' his manager at international level. He tried to intervene, obviously, because Derek Cornelius seems to have been training with the kids or training with the reserves. He's not been training with the first team. Like he's been frozen out by Danny Röhl for some sort of indiscretion, some sort of disagreement, but it'd get lost in translation. And he used the phrase, it's called get lost in translation. He's ended up making the situation worse. So you get Rangers fans, it was all very cryptic as far as I was concerned. You get Rangers fans intervening on social media going, well, Danny Röhl speaks perfect English, so it couldn't have been lost in translation. And I'm thinking, but Jesse Marsch speaks perfect German because he was manager of RB Salzburg in Austria, and he was RB Leipzig as well. He was at Red Bull New York, New Jersey, whatever, and he was at Red Bull, Leeds. Leeds are bigly influenced by Red Bull. And of course, he'd worked with Danny Röhl at RB Leipzig, so they're actually, and Danny Röhl was confirming that, no, we're good pals, totally trust him, and it's all fine. But I think Jesse Marsch has summed up the lost in translation phrase that he was intending by using that phrase. That is get lost. He's meant it's get lost in the transfer of what I was saying to Danny Röhl to Derek Cornelius, or vice versa. It's get lost in the transposing. It's get lost in the relating of it. He's put in lost in translation in that way. I mean, that you say to your mate when your mate picks you up, some get lost in translation there. I think that's what he's trying to say. But that's quite interesting what's happening there. Derek Cornelius, we're flush for big centre halves just now, but I hope it all gets resolved. And I kind of see Derek Cornelius staying at Rangers though this summer. By the sounds of things, Aberdeen are 13 points off the 6th place Falkirk, so they're not going to make the top 6. The Aberdeen are 15 points off 12th place Livingston, so they're not going to go straight down. And if they did finish bottom of the table, I think we'd soon find that the SPL, SP brackets FL, would intervene to say you need to have more than 5,000 red seats in your stadium to be allowed to play in the top flight. So St Johnstone have to stay. I'm trying to make a sarcastic comment about the fact that Aberdeen got away with finishing bottom of the league before because of SPL, the body that no longer exists, rules about who was big enough, whose stadium was proper enough to grace our money-laden top flight. They are, however, Aberdeen only 6 points above Kilmarnock and St Mirren in third and second bottom spots. So I'd imagine Stephen Robinson's priority when he took over at Aberdeen the week before last is to keep clear of the relegation playoff spot. And then, if he does that, perhaps climb the extra 4 points to 7th to get above the two Dundee sides and become the best of the worst. They've just today sacked Peter Leaven, the caretaker. He's always been the caretaker. Peter Leaven at Aberdeen, the manager, he was the manager of Aberdeen that lost twice in a row to ourselves in the league in early January, and now Stephen Robinson, who drew his first game in charge at Pittodrie thanks to a late Falkirk equaliser last Saturday, is hoping to make this 3 draws in a row for Rangers at Ibrox, or maybe he fancies the win across 90 minutes. Or maybe Stephen Robinson fancies the win, which he secured for St Mirren home and away against us last season. He's beaten us at Hampden as well as Motherwell boss. He knows how to beat us. Stephen Robinson had a draw against us when he was St Mirren manager this season, the first meeting in the league as well. So he's a man to be wary of. Either way, Rangers go into this game looking for our first home win in over a month. It's an absolutely nuts season. 15th of February, we stuffed Hearts 4-2. It's a great day. And here we are, the 21st of March, and we're looking at possibly going top of the table if Dundee do something silly at Tynecastle on Saturday afternoon, or we're confirming a crisis of home form, which would once again prove that the best thing that ever happened to Danny Röhl's chances of success at Rangers was Russell Martin having the job immediately before him, just in terms of him not being totally hounded, in terms of Danny Röhl not being totally hounded at the job before he arrives. I think we suddenly decided we loved a kind of gawky, woke, geeky German in a way we'd never have done if his predecessor hadn't been a hairy, woke, vegan Brightonian. And that's before we get into the whole kind of brogues, tie and blazer thing. Literally, before we get into the brogues, literally. We beat them, Aberdeen, 2-0 times 2 in the space of 5 days in early January. 3 corners and a penalty. The assists from Connor Barron. 2 assists from Connor Barron and 1 from Jayden Magoma. 2 players who reappeared as substitutes in Paisley, suddenly back in contention for first team starts, their first team starts in ages. Connor, since he had those 2 assists and was man of the match against his old club at Ibrox back in January, he was put out to talk to the press today. Connor Barron, on Friday, and he's as articulate, polite and positively determined as ever. A very focused young man. Lyle Cameron, talking of midfielders, he was heavily involved in Aberdeen's goal last week against Falkirk, and he won't be playing for them against us, so I hope that cost them. I'd be interested to see how our set piece and aerial bombardments will work against a nascent Stephen Robinson side. He can't bring in Alex Gogic or any of his other big units from St Mirren at this point in the season, but you still have the feeling there'll be a lot more interference for us to run this Saturday than there was in either of the previous meetings with Peter Leven's Aberdeen. He's an organiser, Stephen Robinson. He demands graft, he encourages physicality, and I just hope he's too bold. I hope he's got too much to prove. Aberdeen fans very cool about Stephen Robinson taking the job, so maybe he'll be thinking to himself, I've got Rangers' number, I know how to play against Rangers, maybe I just go for it a bit more than he normally would in an effort to get the Aberdeen fans on time, get a bit of momentum going at the start of his reign, and we catch him out and hammer them. We've got no Europe, we've got no Scottish Cup, the League Cup is long gone, and this is it. This is all we wanted, the title, this is all we're focused on as a support. All we want is a league title, and this is all we need to focus on. It's all we have. We continuously change and generally improve under Danny Röhl. At times of showing signs of steamrolling opponents. Let's show that versus Aberdeen on Saturday night. Let's steamroller the Dons. Danny Röhl's presser on Friday, the pre-match presser. Good performance without the win is nothing, he said. He's happy to take the win versus St Mirren after a poor performance, following 3 draws with good performances as far as he was concerned. Regarding Hearts opening the door last week, this is Rahman from STV was asking about Hearts opening the door, and he was like, what do you mean? Explain that. Maybe lost in translation, that expression, Rahman. I have to talk about Rahman. Rahman, can you just clarify? That wasn't clear enough for Rahman Michael Corleone and 2 just back from Cuba, kind of berating Tom Hagen, asking him to tell him, I've got a straight answer in here anymore, to tell him if the child K lost was a boy, a big bargwash of STV. He was very demanding of clarity on a number of issues today, Rahman. I think Danny Röhl dealt with it very diplomatically, but it made me wonder when he asked Rahman, what do you mean? What do you mean by Hearts opened the door last week? He was actually, can you clarify something for me then, big man? But every point you drop is now crucial, said Danny Röhl, and important for all 3 clubs. Oh, Motherwell getting written off by Danny Röhl, that's a headline there. We set up 2 different ways versus St Mirren. We changed the formation at half time. The performance was a bit unbalanced or imbalanced, but this was a reply to a question about how easy we are on the eye versus if Dan, but he's setting Rangers up just to win as opposed to being easy on that. It was a polite way for the Hacks to ask, you were brutal to watch last week, but at least you won, So this week's hot topic is, you're not very good to watch. It's hard. Just winning is easy on the eye, as far as I'm concerned, Danny. I'll take the heart attack. I mean, I know I was going on about it last week in my post-match reaction pod because it wasn't a comfortable watch at all, but that performance last Sunday is one Danny Röhl, I think, would be lambasting the team for if it was early next season. If we win the league this season, and, well, I suppose it would be St Mirren at home because we're going to be playing them at home first next season, but if we're playing St Mirren in that game, say it's a League Cup game in September, and we put in that same kind of performance and won 1-0, that same kind of performance against St Mirren in Paisley, Danny Röhl would be blasting the players in the dressing room for it, and he would blast them to the media as well, because that's, he would tell them he's going to blast them to the media as well, because that's what Russell Martin taught him to do. Next season, early next season, he would do that. Not now. He's just bringing it home. He just wants to do whatever it takes to bring home the league title. He's telling them that they're on a run. He's telling them it's 8 cup finals. He's telling them when they drop points, performance was great. When they get the win, the performance is brutal. Sod the performance, just get the win. He's getting a momentum going. He's trying to win the league this season. He realises it's nobody really, at this point in time, nobody at Rangers is fussy about how we actually win it. We'll let our kind of rabid, hysterical entitlement, I think it might have got to him before. I think it got to him during the 5-1 win against Kilmarnock at home. They get booed off at half-time for only being 1-0 up against 10 men. But Rangers managers, I think he knows what's best. Like the best Rangers managers, he knows what's best for us, the supporters. He knows how to tune out, sift through the various noises he gets from the crowd and tune out the nonsense. And he's making sure he literally entitles us. He's going to entitle us. We're entitled, but he's going to entitle us by winning the league. This is far too long for a preview pod that folk are only going to have half an hour to watch on it before the game kicks off. Nadiri hasn't scored in the league. That was another hot topic being invented. He hasn't scored in the league yet, Ryan Nadiri, but the hacking question did ask if Nadiri's role in the team made it harder for him to score. He's a hard worker who creates a lot of space for his teammates, said Danny. He's a link player between the lines, while Youssef can stretch the field. They've got two different profiles, so that's why we can play with both of them. That's a good way of telling us more about how the team's set up, why he plays the two of them, whereas we were moaning for ages. He needs somebody to play with him, but now he has got somebody to play with him. Why is that person that's playing with him not scoring the goals? It's just fucking, it's never, and that's how you win stuff. A big club, you're constantly demanding, but it gets a bit ludicrous at times. So now we're on to the fact that Nadiri hasn't scored. But he also went on to say Thelo Asgard's levels haven't dropped at all, and it seemed like Max Aarons as well. But we have and need a strong group. Everyone will be needed, was the point Danny Röhl was making. It's not a team game, it's a squad game. Finlay Curtis, that's the next. Finlay Curtis, the loan deal has worked to perfection. He was the man of the match. I never watched the game against Hearts, where Kilmarnock beat Hearts last week, but apparently he was getting rave reviews. Finlay Curtis, he gets called up to Steve Clarke's Scotland squad. That's fantastic, but that just proves we shouldn't have let him go. Fucking shit, are you kidding me on? It proves exactly why we should have let him go, but Daniel just takes us in his stride at the press, and he's like, yes, I sent him a congratulatory text. I don't know if that was being for a man of the match against Hearts or for getting the Scotland call up, and he's saying that will really help his career to be away on an international. The friendlies against Cote d'Ivoire and Japan, he wouldn't get the chance to play with so many players in his position at Rangers. He wouldn't get enough game time. Although I saw him playing about 3 different positions against Annan Athletic, so you're obviously lying to us, Danny Röhl, but he's getting really good game time at Kilmarnock, and that was the best decision. That's why it was the best decision to loan him out. So the team is the most important thing just now, not the individual. A key line from Danny Röhl in his presser today. But Finlay Curtis, I was joking on Wednesday about how it's the same old thing. It used to be players would be playing brilliantly for Kilmarnock week in, week out, then become a fringe player at the Old Firm, at an Old Firm club, and immediately get picked for the Scotland team. And all your Kilmarnock supporters would be, it's typical Old Firm bias. But I think what's happening now is you're not getting the game time. Steve Clarke can see Finlay Curtis a good player. He's somebody we want. He's a top Scottish talent, but he just can't get the game time at Rangers because we can't afford to bring on. We've got to be winning the league and doing well in Europe and what have you. We've got to have a certain level of squad that's ready to go every game. We can't nurture anything, but he's getting game time at Kilmarnock. That then means Steve Clarke can have him in the squad. So it's worked out absolutely brilliantly. And Daniel wants to improve the team performance because if our results start matching that well, will be hard to stop. Chris Jack kind of set it up as, do you think the crowd's going to turn on you because we haven't won at home in ages? He was setting that one up. That was the last kind of question I asked at the presser today. Chris Jack of Rangers Review, Evening Times, etc. He wants us to make noises all together. to win the next final. Make noises all together so we can win the next final. He keeps hitting the 8 finals thing. It was 9 finals last week. Now it's 8 finals. Some consistent messaging would help. Danny Röhl. The starting 11, then it makes it kind of hard to guess because this is Rahman. Can you just confirm? Can you clarify what's happening with Mikey Moore or Skov Olsen and who's going to be Tour Romans and that? Moore and Tour have got smaller problems for Tour. He should be okay. Mikey Moore has got a little problem. We saw him taking a bit of a dead leg or something last week against St Mirren, so it's not 100% that they will play. Mo Diamandi's back in training. It looks good for him, said Daniel, but again, still not 100% because there's going to be another training session. You can't. But trying to tell Rahman wants answers, yes or no. I don't fucking know. They might pull up. Turns out that they're not ready to start the game. But I'm going to wait and see. It's something that hasn't happened yet. Skov Olsen has been ill for the last 5 days. And we'll see after the training session on Friday if he's available or not. The training session that would take place after the press conference. So that's interesting stuff. Therefore, it's much harder to predict the starting 11 if we don't know for sure who's available. But I'll go with a combination of what I want and what I think it's possibly going to be. And basically, I'll just go for Jack Butland in goals, Dujon Sterling at right back, Giga and Fernandez. Romans is going to come in at left back. Raskin and Chukwani is going to be the starting 2 in midfield, of Gassama and Moore in front of them. Gassama and Moore, because if Skov Olsen hasn't been as fit as we want him to be in his whole time so far at Rangers, being ill for 5 days is surely going to put the tin lid on that. I can't see him playing Nadiri and Chermiti. It's going to be Nadiri and Chermiti again up front. The Dujon Sterling playing means no time. Obviously, it's all very flexible. We make substitutions from about the 53rd minute onward, usually, under Danny Röhl. So, but that's my starting 11. Oliver Antman, he can't be match fit enough now. He's been out so long. I thought he was coming on to a game, kind of January into February, getting his wee appearances again. Oliver Antman, he's scoring the goal against Kilmarnock, a wee assist against Queen's Park. I thought he was coming into things, but no, he just disappeared off the squad list again, Oliver Antman. So I don't think he's going to be an option to come in on the left or the right if Gassama isn't good enough. He was involved. He did set up the assist for our only goal at the game last week against St Mirren, Gassama, but people hate him playing the right hand side, so maybe that's not going to happen again. Skov Olsen, I can't see him being fit enough. I'm going to guess it'll be Gassama that starts on the right hand side with Mikey Moore. Now, Dujon Sterling starting means no Tav, and Dujon's no slouch when it comes to crossing from the right hand side, getting good balls into the box, etc. But Tav, his delivery is kind of invaluable to the way Rangers play, especially against the likes of an Aberdeen when we're trying to outpower teams aerially. So perhaps we could get, I think, a little bit, they were laughing about it in the Rangers review today, but I wouldn't be surprised if we play Sterling and Tav. Tav goes in and takes that right-hand side midfield berth just to rain the shots in and the crosses in on Aberdeen tomorrow. I mean, we're just assuming Aberdeen are going to sit in, but you don't know. They might come at us. Plus the midfields, I mean, he can change the formation, but I'm going to assume he's going to go with the 4-2-2/4-4-2 again. But it's not it's an assumption. It's just I just have to pick a formation to guess at one. I'm going to go with that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he changes it round. I mean, he could bring in Majowski instead of Chermiti, I would think. I actually think Majowski would start maybe instead of Chermiti after that miss Chermiti had against St Mirren. Maybe he wants to take him out the firing line just now. I'd like to see Majowski playing alongside Ryan Nadiri, but I'll stick with the team I've got there. Butland, Sterling, Giga, Fernandez, Romans, Raskin, Chukwani, Gassama, Moore, Nadiri, Chermiti. I think like Raskin and Chukwani, the two of them could go off at half time and Diamandi and Conor Barron come on for the second half. Again, that wouldn't surprise me, but that's what I'm going to go with. All joking aside, I really want Chermiti and Nadiri to score. I was talking last week about how we're going to win this league with Yusuf Chermiti's only going to score against Hearts and Celtic for the rest of the season. That's it. He's only got 2 more games he's going to score, and he's just to annoy everybody. We'll win the league on that, but I would like to see him, Chermiti and Nadiri, getting goals in this game, of course, just to give them both confidence and just to give the team a bit more belief in itself as they go forward into the remaining 7 cup finals. Score prediction, Aberdeen have improved just by getting Robinson in, but so have we since January. And I think we have improved since January in terms of what we're ready to do, ultimately. So that becomes, for me, 2-0 again. We're going to beat them 2-0 again. We've improved, but Aberdeen have improved just by getting Robinson in. So it's a third time we're going to beat Aberdeen 2-0, the last time we played them this season. I know results haven't improved, but I think last Sunday was a bit kind of clawing back the confidence that we might have lost after those two Old Firm setbacks, and we're ready to go. I think when he came in, Danny Röhl, he stabilised us at the back straight away. Clean sheets, sneak a win against Hibs, for example, 5 at the back, because he saw straight away how horrific the defence was. And since January, talking about, obviously we've got Jayden Magoma. If two Romans doesn't make it tomorrow, Jayden Magoma's ready to come in at left back. A man who had an assist the last time he played against Aberdeen. So since January, I think he's been trying to make us kind of steamroller sides, as we were saying. I think the side that he inherited peaked probably that 3-1 win over Celtic at Parkhead, which was sensational. It was electric that second half, especially. And he's then getting played. That's him. That's the extent of Daniel Röhl's make, do, and mend. Started looking like a team that could actually win the league. So into his next phase, where he's got in some of the kind of profile of players that he wants, that happens in January. He gets in the 4 big signings in January. It changes the whole look of the team. He started changing the formation, and we've seen signs of it because it's taken a while to kick in. It's a massive change. But we've seen like the first 50 minutes against Celtic in the league game at Ibrox recently. The whole 120 minutes in terms of dominating possession against Celtic in the Scottish Cup game. Obviously, the whole game against Hearts, we beat them 4-2. You've seen little bits of how this team can stay. And this is the next Rangers team that he's kicking in. Like he would play players who are clearly unfit just to get them time on the park when we were only winning games by a single goal, but he got away with it. And that player, Dujon Sterling is who I'm talking about really, was fit to play the big games in the 90 minutes when he was really required against Celtic. But I think he's doing that again with this team. He's perfecting it. His timing's great. He's coming to the boil again, and like the concessions of 2 goals in all these games, conceding 2 goals against Livingston and against Celtic, and then suddenly that was it. Clean sheets with 2 of them in the trot. This is massive, isn't it? Always with Rangers. Never mind what happens elsewhere. Never mind where we go during the Scottish Cup semi-final weekend. If we go away to warm weather climes or not, a training camp or not. We can't go into this international break more than 3 points off the top of the league. Just ensure we don't concede any ground. Ensure that's the case, and we can build on it, improve on it. Sufficient. If we do sufficiently well this week, if we get the win this weekend, that's enough in itself. That's sufficient to make sure that April we can go and become champions. We hope we do in April as well. This weekend, just stay on that back wheel, be that annoying driver, that annoying cyclist that starts to lean his elbow on your car roof when it gets to the lights, and that. Just make sure they can't get rid of us just now, and then when they get into April and we come back to the international break, we can just push on Rangers under Danny Röhl. Our club's massive. Our thirst for the league title is almost dehydrating us to death, but the possibility here, the opportunity to kind of sneak a league title is huge. Our club is huge. Some of our players are huge. Our team, particularly at set pieces, looks huge. Win by any more than a single goal versus Aberdeen in this game, and it'll be a huge result. Any win is massive. Any improvement on last Sunday's winning scoreline is gargantuan. All I want to do is enjoy another fortnight of feeling things that is massive for Rangers this season. As the old BMI is, for me, I have to leave my rotisserie chicken. It's a pain in the arse, this kick-off time. 5:45. I'll have to leave my rotisserie chicken until Sunday. This kick-off time really messes with my chi and my chicken, but I'll resolve that on Sunday. I'll have my rotisserie chicken on Sunday. Rangers, in the meantime, have to be the kind of hot, crispy skin, the tasty wings, the succulent drumstick, the juicy thighs, and the deeply delicious breasts I need to sustain me on a sultry spring Saturday evening. I want to come out that game tonight with kind of grease stains on my shirt, stretch marks on my belt, and a big I'm thoroughly sated smile on my face. Or maybe another 1-0 win would be better, because we could replicate that one step closer to a coronary feeling that I get when I have my whole chicken in a one on a Saturday night. So I'll eat you after it, folks. Sorry, I'll talk to you after the game.